Hello, hello, hello. This is Adelaide Brown, and I want to welcome you to the HeartLine. And I am so excited to have you here today. As you all know, on the HeartLine, we grow heart equity, personal, relational, and financial wealth that we grow and obtain and cultivate by authentic living. I am so excited about our guest today because she is one of the, I guess you can say, gardeners. When we think about growing heart equity, she definitely is one that can help us take care of the investments that we're making into our hearts and our lives and the world around us. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's Lupus Awareness Month. I'm honoring my mother this month due to Mother's Day and her birthday. So, this guest today, I feel like, can touch on so many of these topics and a whole lot more. I'm so excited to invite my friend, Mrs. Samantha Aguiles. And I'm just so excited to have her here today on the Heartline. So, Samantha, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, ma'am. So, please let everyone know who you are and what you do.
So I'm Samantha Aguiles. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm also a national board certified counselor, and more specifically, I'm trained in EMDR, which is a very special type of trauma therapy that I absolutely love doing. So I am in private practice. I see all kinds of folks who walk in my door, but most specifically, I'm specially trained and I especially love working with trauma. So that's the Spark Notes version of my practice and what I focus on.
Awesome, awesome. Now, it's funny because I know how gifted you are at what you do and how passionate you are about it. And lately, I have been researching more about EMDR. I didn't even know that you were certified in doing EMDR, so that's even more exciting. And I know as
hmm
we go through today, um, I'll definitely ask more questions about that. But one of the things that I, you know, I'm really passionate about, and our Heart Tribe here, everybody that listens to the Heartline, we're really big on healing, but not necessarily feeling like you're always in a state of brokenness when we think about healing, but
hmm
healing from a perspective of being able to navigate the circumstances that come in life
hmm
and not
hmm
allow them to debilitate you and,
Right.
take you out. And I can say, um, I I find you amazing. I tell you this all the time. A little backstory to Samantha and I, we've been friends now. It's been like 8 years.
Yes. Yes, it
I
has.
did I didn't even realize it was that long. All right. And so we met through church and there are a couple of things I want to highlight as I talk about Samantha and our relationship because I feel like one of the messages I want us to get through on the Heartline is that we need each other to
hmm
live, to grow,
hmm
and survive. And sometimes when we get stuck in a broken place, in a sunken place, in a dark place, in a place where we're confused, we really cut ourselves off from people who could really be there for us and help us
hmm
and support us. So when I ended up at the church that we met at, I was on a journey of wanting to get closer to God. I was in a
hmm
space of, you know, I no longer want to be angry. I no longer want to be upset. I had already published my first book. I was working on the second book, getting ready to finish
hmm
that one. And we end up at church and all of us end up in small group together, right? Because I just want to make sure, because ever since mommy passed, not using that as an excuse, but sometimes my memory is like very
Yep, that's
shoddy.
okay.
Okay. So we ended up in small group, but we started doing life together,
hmm
right? We started doing life together. And one of the things that I always appreciated about you and I was I was always raised, love everybody, treat everybody well. But I feel like when we connected with you, when we met you at Laundry Matters, right? Correct
Mhm.
name? Just
Yep,
want to make
yep.
sure. When we
Yes.
met you at the laundromat on the east side, it's like I was like the first time I met you, I was like, this is my friend. Like this is gonna be my friend. Like I just knew it was just something about you. It was something different about you. And like I honestly I feel like God brought you and Lauren and Rachel and Kelly and like the families, like all of us together in that season because I had just come out of like a tumultuous fight with politics and just systemic issues in the community with
Mhm.
racism and prejudice with Murray Lassane, and then coming into this environment, and it was like God put all of us together to like nurture each other and to heal each other. And then in our world, it was like a lot of tension. Trump had just
Mhm.
been nominated president the first time, and it was just a lot of things going on. And I think about when we met at Laundry Matters, and Yolanda and I was just like, this girl is different. Like, she is genuine. Like, and it wasn't about white or black, it was
Mhm.
about human beings, and
Mhm.
it was about kindred spirits and the love of Christ. And I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place. And this is kind of taking me right now. My spirit's kind of taking me in a whole nother direction I
That's
didn't really
okay.
think I was going. But I feel like it speaks to the message of what I'm talking about. It just
Mhm.
speaks to why we need to heal and why we need to grow.
Mhm.
Because you've been my friend and you've shown up in ways and we've been there for each other. And I remember when you were going into doing your hours to get your certification and everything. Um, and you're so good at what you do, but you live it.
Mhm.
And that's just one of the reasons why I wanted you on here. And I just getting a little emotional because I really do appreciate you. And I knew that I didn't realize that much until I got on
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let you talk and share.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the pieces you're saying that stands out is you can find that community in really unexpected places. Church was possibly an unexpected place for you to be at that time in 2017, 2018, whenever that was. That particular laundromat was an unexpected place for me to be at that time. And for our paths to cross, for our circles to overlap at the time that they did, was really unique for both of us. And so I think it just emphasizes that you can find kindred spirits in the oddest of places, the most unexpected of places. So don't restrict yourself. Don't put yourself in a box for what your healing could look like, for what supportive community could look like, because I don't think you or I could have ever planned that if we wanted to. And we both got really supportive community and we both got different kinds of healing from it. So that stands out from what you just said.
Y'all see what I mean? You see why you need to book a consultation with her? You see how she'll help you get your life all the way together? But no, it's true. It's true. And staying in that vein, with this being Mental Health Awareness Month and you being a mental health professional and practitioner, how important is it for us to have community?
Oh, so I can't even say how important, especially now. It's, of course, always been important throughout the history of the world, but 2025 is a bizarre time to be alive. It is a bizarre time to be seeking community because not that long ago, 100 years ago, community was built in to our day-to-day lives. Neighborhoods were a lot closer. People knew their neighbors, the people who lived next door or above or below them. Parents knew the teachers that were educating their children. Children had lifelong friends from a young age through their teenage years because they lived in proximity to each other. People grew up in the same church that they went to as adults. So community was all around us all of the time, not that long ago. And now we live in a world that is extremely fragmented, extremely divisive, extremely isolated, where our neighbors have 10-foot tall privacy fences in between each home, or double door garages where you can't even tell if they're at home or not. The internet has provided immense benefits, but also so much harm, so many obstacles to real intimacy and community. Again, there can be community on the internet for sure. Lots of people have found important community, folks who are disabled, folks who don't have the same access to people as others might have. So the internet has, again, provided us benefits in those areas, but also a lot of obstacles, also a lot of fragmentation. Um, so community is so, so, so important. I don't think we've had a lonelier, more isolated uh generation of people than we do right now, especially in the aftermath of COVID, which is still
Mhm.
happening, by the way,
Mhm.
especially in a day and age where we're just so incredibly divisive. And arguments can be made that we've always been divisive. It's just more obvious now, which I can see. But the need for community is just, it's a lifeline, and it's a lifeline a lot of us don't really have right now.
And I can say that in my own personal experience because after my mother passed away, and you have definitely been a part of the community of people who've been very supportive through this process. But one thing I've realized is there have been many times that I've had people that wanted to support, were there to support, and I rejected it. Like
Mhm.
it was like I couldn't receive it. Though I wanted it, it was a struggle to be able to receive that in that time. Why do you can you speak anything to that? I know that a lot of people, um being a coach, being a life coach, I talk to a lot of people who struggle with trusting people with their feelings, trusting people
Yes.
with their stories and their experiences.
Mhm.
And I understand that. So I'm talking about that, but on a deeper level, what about when you know people love you and they're there for
Mhm.
you, to care for you and support you, but you still push them away? What is that? What do you think that is about?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, you kind of touched on it, which is to say it's incredibly vulnerable. It is such a raw experience to be in need in that way. It's such a fragile state to be in, walking through the death of a loved one, or walking through a terminal illness, or walking through any type of suffering where others want to support you. And there is a question of trust. Can I trust this person to enter into this fragile space with me? Can I trust this person to enter into the rawness and not try to fix it, not try to solve it, not try to give advice covered in platitudes? Can I trust this person to just be in it with me? And that's a real question, and it's a real question that a lot of people, don't pass. And so it makes sense that you would, bar some folks from entering that space with you. It's a really difficult discernment to have when
Mhm.
you're in a place of suffering, knowing who to let in and knowing who to just say no to for the moment. And I don't think all of that is necessarily pushing people away. I believe that you did say yes to certain individuals and certain community. You didn't say no to everyone. And
Mhm.
so as long as you're saying yes to somebody, that's the important piece. But it's expected that you would probably say no to more people.
Mm. Oh, that's good. That's good. And you said something, and I know that this is something I've worked on and been guilty of, I'll say, but I think you can give us more insight into that. When you talk about sitting with someone and not wanting to fix it,
Mhm.
people, I am people,
Mhm.
want to fix it, want
Mhm.
to have solutions.
Mhm.
What motherhood has taught me, motherhood and marriage, some powerful gems,
Yes.
has taught me is that is not always the best thing, even though that you may see a problem, but you with a solution isn't always the answer,
Right. It's
right?
not.
So could you just speak a little bit to that? Um,
Mhm.
navigating that because I think about, being a wife, like I want to help my husband, I'm the helpmate, right? I'm called to serve. But over the
Mhm.
years, we've been together for 20 years now, married for 13. It's like a lot of things I can address, but I really or see or let you know I'm here, but I don't need to do anything else.
Mm-mm.
And but it's like I think a popular thing, and I'll say it's popular in my circle because I'm into personal growth and development. So Mel Robbins is talking about let them. It's
Yes.
let them theory. And I think she got it from somebody else and kind of credits them, but I haven't researched that. But Jesus in his teachings they had the let them theory. I
Mhm.
feel like is the foundation of this.
Mhm.
Um, but could you help us?
Mhm.
Serial fixers and overdoers and people
Mhm.
pleasers and codependent people um, not to I just throw that out there because, I'm joking, but a lot of us struggle with this. And I'm
Mhm.
glad you even highlighted because many people are disconnected and struggling with intimacy with people they want help
Mhm.
from or they want to help. And I think this is still in the vein of mental health. I think this is
Mhm.
really a big thing people need to understand.
Yeah. Well, a few things come to mind. First, if you find yourself wanting to fix or solve, uh, let's take grief, for example, because it's an example that you brought up earlier. If
Mhm.
I enter the space of grief with a dear friend who's mourning, and if I go into problem solving mode or fixing mode, that implies that the person's grief is a problem or that the
Mhm.
person's grief is wrong or that it's bad in some way. I may never say that. The other person may never even hear that. But the undertone of my fixing and my solving implies that something is wrong and it needs to be fixed. There is a problem at hand. Your grief is a problem that needs to be handled. And that is not what grief is. And that is not what weeping or lamenting is. That is not what mourning is. And if I'm fixing or solving something like grief, that implies that I'm more uncomfortable with it. I don't like the mourning that's happening. I don't like the discomfort of the death or the lamenting or the sorrow that I see. So I want to fix it because I'm uncomfortable. And that is not what we're doing when we enter the space of grief with a friend. So those are the things that come to mind when I think of someone who's trying to fix or solve in that moment.
So that's really good. And I think I know you're helping a lot of people to hear it like that
Mhm.
because I don't ever want to come across. I have a friend who just recently lost her mother, and
Mhm.
I wanted when I went to go see her, it was so different because one, I haven't really been able to support
Mhm.
many people in that way
Mhm.
um, since my mom passed away. But when I got with her, the only thing I had is the only solution I had was just don't hold it in.
Right?
Like as
Yeah.
uncomfortable as whatever may
Mhm.
be awkward, be weird, just don't like completely isolate yourself.
Right.
and she appreciated that. But to what you said, I didn't have anything else. And
Right.
I think prior to losing my mom, I would have had something. But
Mm,
I think a lot of that would just be acknowledging the discomfort that we feel when we see people we love going through things that we feel helpless to.
right.
And I just want to highlight this to those that are listening. You may have a loved one that's going through a challenge. I'll use addiction. I'm gonna use addiction because I think grief, people are a lot more willing to give empathy. But I
Mhm.
think I'm using addiction because I went through this with my mother.
Mhm.
And we're talking about mothers, we're talking about mental health. And I remember us going through a lot of situations in life, and the solution would be for her to leave or for her to get clean. She was in an abusive
Mhm.
relationship, so it would be, they were abusing each other, abusing drugs together, so it was very toxic. And I remember when the best form of support I could give was boundaries.
Yep. Yes.
But when I started doing that, it looked like I was being very mean
Right.
and very inconsiderate,
Mhm.
not loving, not honoring my mother. I had a lot of church people quote, the 10 commandments, yeah, I think it's verse, what is it? 10 and 6, one of them, honor your mother and your father.
Mhm.
Um and I struggled with that, but what I realized was I could have solutions, but I couldn't fix it.
Right.
So could you speak to that a little bit, because and I use addiction because my mother, when she passed away, she was 14 years clean, but
Mhm.
she got clean as a result of her life hitting a brick wall, as a
Mhm.
result of her addiction, and it was nothing anyone could do to fix it but her and God.
Right.
With all the
Yes.
solutions that were offered, with all the support that was available, it ended up there. So could you speak a little bit about that, from like a if I came and sat down in your chair and was talking to you about this,
Mhm.
how would you respond? Like helping
Yeah.
somebody that wants to fix it and doesn't
Mhm.
quite understand. What do you mean? Just sit with
Yes.
them in a situation like that.
Yes. Addiction is such a good example to bring up because it is so difficult. It is so hard. And there's addiction in my own family, as you very well know. And the difficulty with addiction, as you've already implied, is that that person is the only one who can make the choice. That person is the only one who can make the choice, and that is infuriating because you can see all the things, you can have all the next steps, you can have all the rational plans and the problem-solving skills to give this person, but until they choose it, until they want it, until they say yes, until they take ownership of their choices, until they take accountability for their actions, we're not going to see a whole ton of change.
Mm,
And even when we do see change, something that I tell people frequently is relapse is part of recovery.
mm, mm,
Expect that to happen.
mm,
Expect relapse to happen. Not because we are hopeless and helpless over our loved one who is addicted, but because addiction is insidious, it can be
mm,
genetic, it rewires our neurons in our brains. It is a sickness and it does not go away overnight. So expect relapse to happen. Even in the best of success stories, we see relapse popping up. It might not be that substance. It might not be they go back to the bottle or they go back to the needle, but they go to shopping or they go to over exercising or they go to restrictive dieting. The relapse could just be another type of addiction. So, having realistic expectations about the journey of addiction is really important. Have realistic expectations for the person enduring it and for yourself as the observer or the loved one. And what sitting in it can look like for someone with addiction is having boundaries for sure, and also always having a thing that you are willing to give.
Mm,
So,
that's so good.
in my personal life, a personal example I can share is that when I had a family member who was struggling with addiction, I had many boundaries up regarding money, regarding phone calls and text messages, all these types of things. But I always told this individual, I've got a room in my home any day, any night.
Mm,
If you need a place, that room is
mm,
available. I will never tell you no. I will never not have it for you, but that room will always be available. And this person never took that room for years and years and years until they did.
mm.
And so
Amen.
I'm not saying you should always have a room in your house available for your addicted loved one, but have something that you're comfortable with always having available. Have
Mm,
something that you're always willing to offer. Maybe it is just an ear. Maybe it is 24/7. If you call me, I'll come. Maybe it is no matter what, we're going to see each other for Christmas.
mhm.
Something. Choose something that you're willing to consistently always have available for that person.
Oh my goodness, that is so good. So when mommy got clean as a result of going to prison. She was
Mhm,
starting to get clean because she knew she had to go to court. And I remember when she came home, I was on my healing journey, just started mindfulness and being able to find this stuff in scripture, about casting our burdens on the Lord. And I used to be so upset about her relapsing because I remember her relapsing, like you said, it's not
mhm,
linear, like you're gonna have
mhm.
bumps in the road because
Cyclical.
cyclical,
Mhm,
there you go. And it's
mhm,
like when I was younger, I remember her relapsing at two different times. And they were like years apart each time. And the last time was before we really had our downfall when I was in like going into middle school.
mhm,
And so when she went to prison for a year and came home, and this was in 2010, I was like 27, 28, yeah, something like that. And I remember when she came home, I told myself that I was not holding her to staying clean.
mhm,
This was the first time I didn't have the expectation. Every other time
mhm,
I had the expectation and she relapsed, right? But this time I said, it's like my love was not going to be conditional on her being clean. So I didn't have that language back then, but I feel
mhm,
like I was understanding more. I didn't know it was a boundary, but I was like, okay, I'll be willing to do this, but certain things I'm just not going to be willing to do. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying?
mhm,
And I feel like you saying that is going to help a lot of people
mhm.
because it hurts to see your loved ones go through things,
Yes.
especially for people who are wired to fix it.
Mhm,
But in light of us talking about EMDR and, addiction and grief, in my experience, a lot of times we struggle with being able to sit with people and sit in those tough places and set those boundaries because we have emotions that we have not
yes.
dealt with.
Yep, absolutely.
And a lot of people think that expressing emotions is a weakness. They think that it is pointless.
Mhm,
They think that, tears are a sign of weakness. And you were one of the people that kind of we were talking about this and you told me about that study talking about the power of tears and things like that.
mhm, mhm,
And Um, so could you speak a little bit to why someone may struggle? Like thank you so much for highlighting that because I've lived what you just said, like, and I've lived that having those boundaries. When my mother passed away, she'd been clean for 14 years.
mhm.
But she said it was because she got tired of getting high
Yes.
and she was never going to stop. She was
Yeah.
very clear about that. She was never going to stop
Mhm.
until she got tired. But I had to start working on me
Right.
to even be able to establish that
Mhm.
boundary and that tone in our relationship. So I feel like I kind of touched on a couple of things, but I feel like a lot of times we struggle with holding those boundaries, being able to sit with our loved ones and developing and walking in a light of growing heart equity and having healthier relationships as a professional. What is your
Mhm.
take on how our emotions play out and how we interact with those we love?
Mhm. Oh man.
We
We
got
those
time.
emotions play such a big role. The most common emotion I'll see and that I too have experienced with addiction is just immense anger. There's
Mm,
so much anger toward the person who is addicted or who was addicted to any substance. Um, so the person in my life was a sibling, is a sibling. They're still alive, no longer addicted, and praise the Lord. And that was a 13-year journey. So again, none of this healing is happening overnight. And it is so common to be angry at the person. I remember being so angry at this person, being so angry by the impact that they were having on my parents specifically, so angry at the impact they were having on our larger extended family, so angry that holidays would come and go and this person would not be present when they said they would be, or would arrive under the influence of something and it would just be uncomfortable for everybody. So much anger over the years and years of just never knowing if this person was alive or dead,
mm,
in jail or not, in the same state or not, in rehab or not, had the same phone number or not. We just never knew. And that anger can turn to numbness. It can turn to desensitizing yourself. It can turn into apathy. It can turn into bitterness. So, all of those emotions harm you.
mm.
They don't harm the person who's addicted. They're doing their own harm to their own self. But
Ooh,
that anger you have, that numbing, that desensitizing, that bitterness, that apathy, that is harming you. It's
mm,
not harming them.
mm,
They don't even know about it. So that needs to be kind of brought into the healing first. Before you can have any hope for healing of your loved one, you've got to deal with your own anger around it, because when they do get healed, if they do get healed, now they're healed. But how can you have new relationship with them if you've had years of pent up anger and bitterness and apathy that's been building? So that is a strong recommendation I would have for a loved one in that situation. If you are a loved one of someone who's addicted, or if you're a close observer of someone who's addicted, notice if you've got any of that anger. Notice if that anger is turning into bitterness, apathy, numbness, desensitizing, because that is going to harm you more than anybody else.
mm. That is, I'm just soaking this all in because, um, like this is like this is like a sneak peek to our little coffee dates and our walking dates. But I thank you for that because what you're describing is literally what my mom and I lived out. And we didn't
Mhm.
walk through this with a therapist,
Mhm.
a professional counselor, right?
Mhm.
And hearing you say this lets me know the power of the Holy Spirit
Mhm.
and
Yes.
how some people you're listening now and you may hear Samantha, you hear me, and you might be like, I need to book with her, and we will have her information and everything so that you can connect with her. Um and some people might feel like they can't. But you can go back and listen to this over and over again and pull some of these nuggets out and start trying, right?
Mhm.
And I say that because you touched a little bit on your own personal experience, and I really appreciate that because a lot of mental health professionals, in my experience, just show up as a professional, and we want to know why. You know how they
Yeah.
say, we don't care what you know until we know that you care.
Yep. Mhm.
Right? So, could you tell us a little bit about what made you even decide to get into this
Mhm.
profession? Because honestly, my experience of you is you live this. You really
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
You really do. Um, and it's very real, it's very authentic. But just us having this dialogue a little bit more in a professional sense, because I want
Mhm.
people to know who this therapist is I'm always referring them to. Um, Could you tell us a little bit about why you do
Yes.
what you do?
Yes. Oh goodness, what a weird story. So I
Okay,
had
let's get the tea. Look, let me get my avocado cup. Let's get the
Oh,
tea.
yes. Oh, I love it. So I never wanted to be a therapist. I was so embarrassed even when I started because I was like, I'm a therapist. I don't want to tell people that. That's like telling people you're a pastor, right? No one wants to talk to you, or they all want to talk to you. So I was like, I
Either
don't
or.
want I don't want to be a therapist. But in my young adult life, I had actually started working in the nonprofit world, as you know, and as we met during that time. So, in my mid 20s, I was the director of a nonprofit in downtown Charleston that focused on asset based community development in the East Side, and we did it from a faith-based perspective. So asset-based community development is a evidence-based concept. There's literature on it all over the place. It's where you take assets of a community, strengths of a community, you build up those strengths to empower local residents to initiate productive change. There are other wonderful organizations who operate like this in Charleston. Metanoia is one of them. They do great, great work in the Chicora Cherokee neighborhood using this model. Um, so I lived in the East Side for many years, operating an organization that did asset based community development, which I also believe is the gospel. So
Absolutely.
that's what
Yes.
Jesus does. He finds our strengths, he knows our strengths, he uses those to empower us toward productive change. He highlights the skills and the talents and the gifts that we already have. So that was the type of work I was doing. Inevitably, we took ownership of a local business, the laundromat. That is a huge asset. We used that asset to employ local residents, to provide
Mhm.
free laundry services, to operate a food pantry, a clothing closet,
Yes.
do Bible studies, computer
Yes.
classes, after school tutoring. We did so, so many things in that laundromat because we pulled up all the assets, all the strengths that already existed in the neighborhood and empowered local residents. Um, so by
And let's
default,
just highlight this. She didn't come in trying to save the community. She was living there.
mhm,
Correct?
yes,
I just want to say that, right? Because I feel like we'll talk more in future episodes, but you were part of the assets in the community.
mhm,
You participated in that as well because that's
mhm,
what really drew us in because it was clear to us that you didn't feel like you were coming in to save them.
right,
You were
yes,
like, we are all here together. Let's figure out how we can make this better for us.
yep,
That was the vibe that I got from you. And I just want to
yes.
really highlight that. I really do. Yeah.
Yes, and I don't think community development can work well many other ways. Not to say it's impossible. We obviously see it done in other ways all throughout the country.
Mhm.
But living in the community that you're developing or producing change in is important. So I didn't just go to the laundromat and drive across a bridge and go home. I walked to the laundromat and I walked home, and inevitably a gaggle of children would be following me, or somebody else would ring my doorbell at 8 p.m., or there'd be a knock on the window at 10 in the morning. So, yes, in the community.
Yeah, I just had to highlight that now because it's
Yes,
important, it's powerful, and it's inspiring. So I just wanted to make sure they know you weren't bussing in and bussing out. You were
yes,
there, boots on
yes,
the ground. That's a popular song. You were
yes,
definitely boots on the ground. Yes. Okay.
yeah.
So keep going. Just
And
had to say that.
so by default, doing this type of work, that type of work, I encountered a lot of people who had all types of mental health problems, mental health obstacles. I did not know that at the time. I was like 20, between the ages of like 24, 28 during this season. And I remember a friend coming up to me and saying, "Wow, Samantha, you do really well with people who have mental illness. You do a lot of good work with people who have mental illness." And I remember being so offended. I was so aghast. I was like, "How dare
How
you
could
say
you? Yes.
that my friends all have mental illness?" What a rude thing to say. Truly, I was like offended. And I remember like being heated about it for a good bit. And I'm like going through my mind and I'm like, Robert is just a 45-year-old man who wears a superhero costume because he likes to. Like he likes Spider-Man. And I remember like going through some of the characters in the neighborhood who I would interact with frequently. And I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I can see where they're coming from.
There's a pattern here.
Right, there's
Yeah.
a pattern. So where I saw characters and quirkiness and just fun, unpredictable relationships with my neighbors, this friend saw mental
Mental
illness,
illness.
and I was so upset about it.
Let me be clear, I'm not laughing at anyone, I'm not teasing anyone. I am
Right.
laughing at Samantha and the fact that she was unaware. We talk about awareness a lot. You
Yes.
were very unaware
Unaware.
of
Completely unaware.
what was going on because you were essentially just seeing them for who they were.
Mhm.
You didn't have any other judgment. You just were dealing with them on face value,
Yep.
and you just didn't see the bigger picture at that time. So I'm
Yes.
laughing at her,
Yes.
what is it? Naivety
Yes.
to the
Laughing at my
whole yeah.
24-year-old self. Yes, for
Yes, that's
sure.
it. Yes.
So then I started thinking, and I was like, oh man, I think my friend was right. I think there are like some other things going on with the quirkiness, as I called it, or like just the fun, unpredictable interactions I would have with people, and some of them not so fun, right? I mean, there
Mhm.
were very violent interactions that happened at the corner laundromat on Reed and Columbus Street, as I'm sure anyone can imagine. Like people pulled guns, cops were called, crimes were committed. So we saw all the varieties of quirky behavior that
Quirky
can
behavior.
also
Yes.
fall under the
Yes.
umbrella of
Of men
possible mental health
yeah.
struggles.
Yeah.
Um, Plenty of substance use, all kinds of things.
Mhm.
And so then I started doing some research and making some moves, and I was like, "All right, Lord, if this is a door you wanna open, open it." And inevitably, I got into the master's program at the Citadel for clinical counseling. It was just night classes. I was like, "I'm not moving, and I'm not doing no expensive program.
Mm-mm.
So it has to be at night. I work during the day. It's gotta be affordable, reasonable, you know, let's see what happens." And
Yeah.
so got into the program, which by the way, I had taken never, nary a psychology class in my life. I took 0.
What?
So
How you
I
make
don't
it
need
through college with because of your major? You didn't have to
right.
take it.
So
Wow.
I majored in religious studies and sociology. I didn't take a single psychology class. No
I would
psychology.
I would think that you would have to take a psychology class if you major in really?
Nope.
Wow. Okay.
Nope.
Got it. Got it.
Nope.
Okay.
So they just have you there's certain requirements to take X number of humanities
Yeah,
courses or
got you. You're
X
right.
number of social
Yeah,
sciences.
you're
So you
right.
can get away with not taking psychology because I was never interested. Not
Yeah.
interested in psychology. What am I'm not I don't want to be
Why?
a therapist. Yeah. So I took no psychology classes. I applied for this master's program at the Citadel. Because I had never taken a psychology class, I had to take the regular GRE and the psychology specific GRE because I had never taken a psychology class before. So I was
Got
getting a
it.
master's in psychology And they were like, "No, ma'am, you have to have some
Some
psychology
psychology training,
under
yes.
your belt." So I had to take the regular GRE plus the psychology GRE. The minimum test score to get in to the Citadel was a 600 on the psychology GRE. I got exactly a 600. I got the bare minimum. I did not know a thing. I didn't study psychology. Let's be so clear. No psychology. So the acceptance deadline comes and goes for the Citadel, and I'm like, surely I didn't get rejected. That's just embarrassing. Like, it's a night class, it's the Citadel. No offense. Love the Citadel. But I'm just like, did I really not get in?
Exactly,
So I call
exactly.
them.
After graduating from college at Charleston,
Right,
right?
right,
Okay,
and
yeah,
this is
let's be
a few
clear,
years.
yeah.
Yeah, a few years had passed, so I was, like, 25 applying to this program, and then I did call them, and I actually, like, had an exchange with the dean at the time, and I was like, "I'm just curious if I got in. I haven't received any acceptance information," and he told me that I did not get in. And I was like, "Oh, how interesting. Can you tell me why?" And he said, "Your GRE score. The psychology GRE score was too low." And I said, "I am reading on your website right now that the minimum score is a 600, and I got a 600. So please tell me why my score is too low." So I truly did. I was like, "No, no, sir. It
Yeah,
says right
I
here,
gotta challenge
600."
this because this is saying one thing and you
Yes.
telling me something else.
And he paused and he said, "Let me get back to you." And I got an acceptance email later that day. So I should not have gotten into this program, y'all. I should not be a therapist.
But you're
So
so good. See,
yes,
God ordained you for this. So that's why these stories are so powerful.
yes. So that's how I came to be here. So really, the degree was just to get me some credibility, so I could have a license and do the thing that essentially I was kind of already doing.
No, you were
Truly.
doing it. You were doing
Hmm.
it. You were doing it. Absolutely. I saw you in action. You were doing it. And that's why it's so funny to me for you to say that you didn't have any background in it
Hmm.
because I could see why your friend would say to you, you deal with people with mental illness so well. And it
Hmm.
is because you treat them like they're normal
Hmm.
because we all have challenges. We just
Yep.
have challenges in different ways.
Yes.
And I just think that is so profound. So getting into becoming a professional counselor now, after
Hmm.
getting through the program, um, what do you find that people struggle with most? If you had to like kind of tap into in your practice and just in general, what you see in life, what you see in the media, just culture, what do you think
Hmm.
people struggle most with mental health that you've been able to help your clients um, through those
Hmm.
challenges?
Mm. That's such a good question. Just in what I've seen and what I've heard and my very small, experience with the people in front of me is truly vulnerability. That
Mhm.
is one of the largest obstacles in any road to healing is people willing to be vulnerable, willing to be honest about their emotions. And now that might sound backwards because if you go onto social media, you could see people being vulnerable all day long on the internet. But that is such a different context and format because, as we all know, you can curate your social media so that none of your loved ones are even on your feed, or
Mhm.
all the people who follow you are complete strangers.
Mhm.
Well, bearing your heart to strangers is not the same as being intimate and vulnerable to other loved ones in your life. It's not. And
Mhm.
so that is the biggest obstacle I see frequently when someone's in front of me and I ask, "Well, what happens when you tell your dad that? Or what happens when you have that conversation with your roommate?" Or what does it feel like for you when you
Mhm.
bring that up to your spouse? And the answer is almost all of the time, well, I haven't done that.
Mhm.
Well, I don't do that. It's like, well,
Mm.
that's where we need to start. We have to start with vulnerability, and it's as simple as we call them I feel statements. As simple as an I feel statement. I feel hurt when this thing happens. Can we talk about it? Or
Mhm.
I feel scared when I see this thing take place. Can we find a better way to interact?
Mm.
I feel confused when our conversation starts to go in this direction. Can you help me understand? So,
Mm.
truly, just finding a single emotion word to express to the other person, start there, and it can really open a whole world that we're honestly really scared of opening.
Oh, goodness. That is so good and it's so refreshing because for me, that's my whole message is about vulnerability. I've navigated life and become more um aware of the wholeness that,
Mhm.
we're because I used to think I was broken. A lot of people think they're broken. I think you can relate to that term in a sense. However,
Mhm.
we're never really broken. I feel like we're just not put together. I
Mhm.
feel like it's more like a puzzle versus like a shatter. But
Mhm.
sometimes being vulnerable is the shatter that needs to take place. It's the breaking that needs to
Mhm.
take place of this thing so that we can get to a better thing for us.
Mhm.
Um, what I have found, and you touched on this, is you said using the I feel statements. This is so good because I feel like this is like a mini course, emotional wellness course right now, like
Mhm.
because you can take these things away. But why is it so important for us to be able to? What I've found is we want to be able to name our emotions as much as we can, but sometimes we
Mhm.
can't. So why
Mhm.
is it so and this might not be the best question, but you can help me with this. I feel like you know where I'm going with this, but why is it so important for us to share those emotions? Some people say, well, it doesn't matter. They're not going to care anyway. But I like to tell people if you care enough about it, then it needs to be expressed
Yes.
because you matter that much. But from your
Mhm.
perspective, why is it important to have that conversation, to express ourselves and be
Mhm.
vulnerable?
Mhm. Well, it's important, number 1, for you, for the speaker, for the person sharing. It is important for me to recognize even how I feel. So, to answer your question earlier, sometimes we don't know how we feel. How are we supposed to know? Truly, there are just lists all over the internet. If you just Google emotion word list, emotion wheel, list of
Yes, I'm
emotions,
familiar with the wheel.
you're
Yep.
gonna get hundreds of thousands, truly, of emotion words. There are so many emotion words that exist in our language. So look that up if that's helpful to you. Even if you don't know the emotion word that you're experiencing, your body is interacting with your emotion in some way. So maybe I can't articulate that I'm embarrassed, but my face starts to flush or my hands start to get sweaty or shake or my stomach starts turning. So I can say that instead. I can say, I kind of feel a little sick after the thing that was just said. Can we talk about it? Or
Mhm.
I'm feeling a little flushed and kind of jittery after that interaction. Can we just rehash that a bit more? So, even if you don't know the emotion word, you can articulate what your body is saying. You can articulate the message your body is sending. And that's strong enough, even if you can't find the emotion word. But to answer why is it important? It's important so that you know what you feel, so that you can be aware and then start communicating it or resolving it or being curious about it. That's how you develop insight. It's how you develop intuition. It's how you develop knowledge about yourself. Know what you're feeling and where it's coming from. And then it's important to communicate it because No one can read your mind. So
Mm.
we need to communicate it so that we can build trust, build intimacy, and build vulnerability with one another. And however the listener interacts with your I feel statement will give you a lot of information about if they are trustworthy or not. It will give you a lot of information about the intimacy of that relationship. But you don't know until you try. You don't know until you start communicating.
That is so good. And when I think about what you said, we communicate because that's how we build community. That goes
Yep.
back to where we started from the beginning of this conversation.
Mhm.
It's important for us to communicate how we feel. It's important for us to communicate if we don't even know how to use the words to communicate what it is viscerally, like
Mhm.
what you're feeling in your body. But it all goes back to this is how we grow community.
Mhm.
And this is how we maintain our mental health.
Mhm.
And I just want to thank you so much for just taking the time to be the practitioner that you are, the professional that you are, but most of all, just the community member that you
Mhm.
are. Because honestly, like I knew I wanted you on. I've been talking to you about this for a while, but this is better than I could have imagined because I know for a fact there are going to be people listening to this that can take away some of these tangible tools and strategies that you've given them, and they can start to see their
Mhm.
lives change interaction by interaction because that's how we change our lives. That's how
Mhm.
we grow heart equity. Interaction by in one conversation, one thought being processed at a time, and we just
Mhm.
continue to see these things unfold. But this is so good, Samantha. I am so thankful. I'm looking at we're coming right up on our hour. So what I will do is one, will you come back again to be a guest?
Absolutely.
Okay, y'all
Yes.
heard it. She is locked in. We got our resident counselor and our heart tribe. So this is, as you grow community, just know we have some very, very competent and professional and caring professionals, licensed
Mhm.
professionals that are in our community, in our network, wanting to help you grow and get better. So, Samantha,
Mhm.
tell the people how they can connect with you. I will have your links in the description, but just let those who are listening know how they can connect with you.
Yep, so the easiest way is just Google my name, Samantha Aggeles, Aggeles. The name of my practice is the name of me. So if you Google me, you'll find the practice. Samantha Aggeles Counseling, samanthaaggeles.com. So that's my website. That's the name of my practice. If you Google me, you'll find those pretty immediately.
Awesome sauce. And I just thank you for being here. But for me, I'm in this work. I'm a heart work practitioner myself, and I got a lot out of this. Like I got a lot
Mhm.
out of the I feel statements. Um,
Mhm.
I love you sharing your testimony, and I think it can help a lot of people find their themselves and be able to find peace in just being themselves and just knowing
Mhm.
that your emotions matter. There's
Yep.
nothing wrong with you, and even if you feel like your emotions are not real. Like I felt like nobody loved me and nobody cared. And Samantha called and I was out of town and she had hot food at my door.
Mhm.
Right. So sometimes your emotions can lie to you.
Mhm.
That's my
Yep.
experience. Right. So I just want our heart tribe and everyone who's listening to know that you're not alone,
Mhm.
to know that people do love and care about you, and to know that your mental, your emotional, your physical health all matters. You matter. And we want you to know that here on the Heartline. So I thank y'all for being here. I thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure you connect with Samantha. I'm sure she does virtual and in person. So if you're not in South
Yes.
Carolina, doesn't matter. You can still work with her. Isn't that a blessing? That's where we thank God for technology. And we will be back next Thursday. Remember, y'all, when you heal your heart, you transform your life.